Okay, great. So let's look at the first exercise here. The first exercise, this is in your textbook, by the way. It's the first chapter in it's the first exercise, TYU1. So you can also refer to this as I'm walking away or you're working away. And what this does is it allows us to tackle or look at a few concepts or issues or parts of this first chapter of this chapter. So we've just looked at this. By the way, these questions are quite fair. The exam kit question is critical. You have to hit the kit. You have to. It's critical. You see very much more challenging questions and much more questions that look like what comes out in the exam. But these questions are very much to explain conceptually what's going on. So here we are. 25 minus 20 gives us 5. That is the contribution on every unit, isn't it? Selling price of 25 and variable cost of 20. Your contribution is 5 and you have fixed costs of 50. So it says calculate the number of units that must be made and sold in order to break even. So I am definitely with this. I mean, this is not a formula, it's just a representation of what is going on. Right? So you have 50,000 units trying to cover £5, if you like, a unit, and that is 10,000 units. And that's what you have right there. So sell 10,000 units and you will cover these fixed costs. I mean, we can test it if you like. Multiply this by 10,000, multiply this by 10,000 if you like, and you will see you will have here 250,000 and you will have here 200,000, giving you a total contribution of 50,000. Take away your fixed costs and your profits will be 0. And that's that first one. Next one says calculate the level of activity. So I'm going to come back to generate a profit of 40,000. So think of it like this. This is important. Once you've covered your, I mean, I can do this, I can write this here. Once you've covered your fixed costs, right? Think about it. Imagine you were selling, imagine these were, I don't know, imagine these were in a restaurant and you're selling meals, £25, but your variable cost is £20 per unit. That's what you've costed your variable cost, the cost of actually making a meal, like the food and potatoes and the fish, whatever it is that you're selling. And you do this every week. And on Monday you sell 10,000 units. So on Monday you're able to pay your rent. Now, imagine this rent, 50,000, was for the week. Now, on Tuesday, when you sell another unit, you will make £5. Now, everything you make from Tuesday all the way till Saturday, if you like, depending on what day or till Sunday, depending on whatever your week is profit. So you could really have calculated the 10,000 units first. And then the next question here is really asking, I mean, we'll look at how they've done it, but it doesn't really matter. The next question is saying, well, you need to now cover, I mean, how many units do you need to arrive at 40,000? Well, that's pretty straight, right? It must be 40,000 divided by 5. Yes, and if you like, this is equal to 8,000 units. So really we're saying that, okay, we've covered our break even. So to talk about target, this is the technical term for this area in studies referred to as target profit. So to discuss target profit and this type of language, we're first of all making sure that we have covered, if you like, our fixed costs, which we divided by 5 as well. But also we have this required target profit to cover as well, which we will divide by 5. So technically, this is the same thing as saying, well, I could consider 40,000 to be a fixed cost of sorts, because ultimately it's a target. I cannot live or breathe. It might be a benchmark from work that they require me to meet before they can accept my whatever, if I can get my bonus. So ultimately, it can look like a formula where ultimately you need you need to cover, if you like, this thing, 50,000 plus 40,000 divided by 5. So this, if you like, right, so you have 90,000 divided by 5, which is equal to 18,000 units. So what are we saying? Whenever you see a question that talks about you having to generate, if you like, some extra profit, ultimately what you're trying to do, what you have to do is consider it to be a fixed cost as well, and add, if you like, the two together and divide by the contribution per unit. But I've also explained it to you from the point of view of it being a case of, once you have covered your fixed costs, all the contribution ultimately after that is profit until the next cycle, and then you're just really looking at how many items you need to sell to break even, sorry, to cover that required profit. Right, okay, great. So that's that. Then we have this idea, if you like, of margin of safety. Now, I mean, it literally is saying that you intended to sell, your budget, your plan is to sell, your budgeted plan was to sell 13,000 units. And literally, it's what it's saying. What is our safety net? How low can we go before we hit break even? Break even is 10,000 units. It's literally saying, listen, you if you're a break even, you're just paying your fixed costs. You ultimately don't want to be here. You want to be right up here. You even want to be further on at 14,000. But it allows you to use language like, okay, guys, we can fall by 1,000 units and we're still safe. We can fall by 2,000 units and we're still safe. Oh my goodness, once we fall by 3,000 units, we're exactly at break even, and that is dangerous. Because once we cannot cover our fixed costs, so once we're around this area, then there's a likelihood that we might get shut down because we can't cover our fixed costs. Right. So ultimately, how do we work this out? I mean, it's what it is. We take the budgeted level. So in this case, it's the 13,000. That's the planned minus the break-even level, which is 10,000 units. And I was trying to explain the other day that yes, 3,000 units, if you like, is significant. Well, the question here is, we can't stop here. I said I was using a scenario. Look at two businesses. Look at this business where we have 13,000 minus 10,000, and look at this business where they have 500,000 minus 497,000. So if you look at this, these are both 3,000, but the situation is slightly different here. You can see that here 3,000 as a percentage of, if you can say things like, you can see this is even thinner. You can see here that if you need 497 to break even, and you're currently selling 500,000, 3,000 as a percentage of your 500,000 is very small. It's actually very thin. So we're really saying here, if we compare this 3,000, we look at the 3,000 divided by 500,000. Here we have less than, this is almost like, this is 0.006. Yeah, so this is really 0.6% here to this one. Here I have 3,000 divided by 13,000, which is 23%. So the language is different. So what I'm saying here is that units will have to fall by 23% before we get to break even. This is what I'm saying here, right? Because 3,000 as a percentage of the 13,000, right? This is where I'm starting from. This is my reference point. This is my reference point. And I'm literally saying that units will have to fall by 23,000. Here I'm saying units will have to fall by 0.6%. So you can see this is a much riskier situation, than this one, if you like. So now calculating the numbers on its own is not enough. We have to go ahead and work out the actual percentage, because then that makes sense, because then we can talk about it and compare products. We can talk about it that way, right? And look at what's going on. So it's critical that we are calculating it in percentage language. Cool, great. So that's kind of, those are three things. Those are the first three things that you might just naturally get asked when you do this type of question. Calculate break even, calculate the number of units they hit a target, profit, and then also calculate the margin of safety. Okay, great stuff. See you in the next video.